All right, we ready? We are ready. Ready to create these future-ready schools, right? So a little bit about me first. I'll give you a little bit of credentials of my background. You heard a little bit of it earlier. Former Director of Innovation, been a part of some one-to-one programs, and the Future Ready Schools National Advisor. I think when it comes to quotes that speak to me, I love this Teddy Roosevelt quote right here, which is very true. It's hard to prepare for that future if we're not really looking back at the past and thinking, what do we learn from that past? So I thought it'd be interesting to go back in my past and take a look at, whoops, that's the wrong photo. How did that happen? By the way, does anyone else think Facebook just exists so like your parents can post embarrassing photos of you when you were a kid? Like, I don't know what exactly is happening with those jorts there. And like my grandmother's holding like a random rooster. I don't know what's happening there. Just, it's fun, right? Yeah. So before I became a tech director, I actually was a first grade teacher. Aw, yeah. I'm right here in case you can't see me. The kid in the back's just trying to be as tall as me there. That's great. I just try not to kill these kids every day. But I did think it was interesting. Let's reflect a little bit on then and now. And so I'm going to show you this video. Now, what I want you to do is just kind of think about it for a second and tell me, what do you think is the biggest difference between these two videos? Go ahead, call out something. No people. No, someone over there. Black and white and color. Yes, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, on the one on the right, there was a person in it for just a minute. What was that person doing? He was hitting the on button, right? And if it doesn't work, how does he fix it? He kicks it, right? That's what we do when technology breaks. So thinking about this and this shift that's been happening, and you look at all the companies that no longer exist, right? Toys R Us, by the way, I just heard, they're coming back, right? Building experiences, things like that. I'll focus a little bit on this company here, Compaq. Anybody used to have those computers? Yes, this is what my classroom looked like. I had those Compaq computers in the back of my room. Awesome. We had those other computers that were like the ones that came in the cow boxes. What were they called? Gateway. Yeah, Gateway computers. And it was awesome because I'd put the kids on these computers and I was like the high-tech guy. I'd get them engaged and we played all sorts of games like that one. And what were all the different ways you could die in this game, right? What was one way you could die? Number one answer always, dysentery. Yes, good job, everybody. Like if middle school kids loved it too, because like if you fell and broke your arm, you died. If you stared up at the rain, you drowned. You know, there was all these different things that would happen. I played this, we used this a lot in our classroom. Yes, remember this? Yes. It was like the best way to like, you could integrate geography and history and as I'm looking at this game, I realized the copyright date there, 1985. By show of hands, how many of you were created after 1985? There's always a few in the room. Every year that gets numbered, the number gets bigger for some reason. Probably because I'm getting older. But if you think back even 40 years ago, these are some companies that didn't exist. Now, looking at this list compared to the list I just showed you, you'll notice there's still some travel agencies in there, travel companies, not agencies. Like JetBlue, you've got more tech industry, of course, there's the experience like Starbucks, and it's really kind of shifting to this model of less of service, but more about experience, right? And this is not a timeshare talk, I'm not here to sell you a condo. However, if I had 2 pennies to rub together, I would probably invest in these 2 strategies, right? You look at the investment potential of both artificial intelligence and robotics, and here's where it has an effect on us in schools. We see robotics in schools everywhere now, right? STEM, STEAM, little Sphero robots rolling all around the classrooms. AI is also starting to get into schools. How many of you have a digital assistant at your house, like an Alexa or a Google Home that's listening to everything you do? Awesome. So do I have several. You know, and there's that idea that artificial intelligence, how is that going to shift the way we're thinking and the way we're teaching in schools? What's become a knowledge-based economy when you can just ask Alexa? I know that Alexa helps me be a parent. Seriously, I'll admit it. My 4-year-old who asks the same question over and over again, what do 4-year-olds ask? Why? I'm like, I don't know, go ask Alexa. No, not really, I'm not that bad. But I do get to talk to them. Last night, I checked into my hotel and I was able to send an announcement throughout my entire house and talk to my kids that way, which is kind of an interesting connection. Now, the other thing I'll show you is that this is a quote from Dr. Mashivardi from Rice University, and it's very interesting what he's saying here. So he says that machines can take 50% of jobs. That doesn't mean that 50% of jobs are just going to absolutely disappear. There's also potential for new jobs that are going to be created because of this, right? So if this is true, I'm curious what you guys think. If this is true, what are some skills we should be empowering our kids with, our students with? just shout out a few ideas. If 50% of jobs are going to be automated, what should we be giving them in terms of skills that's going to separate them from robotics and automation? Thinking outside the box. What else? Adaptability, yes. Problem solving, yes. Communication, creativity, perfect. Right. Critical thinking. These are not things that robots can do. And some people say, well, coding. I was like, yes, coding. But at some point, even coding is going to become automated. So we need to continue to separate ourselves from that idea. And it's actually interesting. The World Economic Forum, they meet about every 5 years. And they've released this list. This was actually a couple years ago. And then what they did is they gathered and they predicted what do they think the skills that we're going to need in the future. So in 2020, which is right around the corner, and a lot of the things you guys just said are still on the list. So complex problem solving, still there, number one, right? Now, a few of these kind of change places, still need to be able to work with others, coordinate. It's interesting, though, to see what's come up higher on the list. Look, critical thinking and, someone said it back there, creativity, now rising up, right? Now, a few of these kind of change around, a few of them drop off, and what's interesting is this, what's been added to the list. You've got emotional intelligence, SEL, any of you running curriculum with SEL now in your schools, right? And then this idea that you have to have that adaptability, that cognitive flexibility, the ability to really change kind of on the fly. And there's perseverance built in there, there's grit built in there. How do we change when things aren't working the way we want? How do we change our thinking on things? Now, I'll say that all the things on this list do have a place in our schools, and it's kind of our job to figure out how do we integrate that thoughtfully. And at the same time, deal with this, right? Now, I will say that cognitive flexibility comes in handy when you're dealing with state assessments. But it is part of it. Now, there's another thing that I discovered just recently. It's a website, and I thought this would be interesting. It's called willrobotstakemyjob.com. So I thought, let's type in, let's do this. I'll ask you to predict. If I typed in teachers, what is the percentage likelihood that in the next 20 years, teachers' jobs will be replaced by robots? Give me a percentage. 0. 2. I like this. This is a very good, you guys are like, yeah, we're not getting replaced. 50%, there's the pessimist in the room right there, yes. Let's look it up. It's actually 0.95, and which is awesome, totally safe. Which is funny is if you type in administrators, it's 0.36. We're gonna be here longer than the teachers, that's awesome, no. But when you think about that, you think about the idea that we need to shift these jobs, what are a couple jobs that you could think of that could be replaced soon, or are being replaced now? Cashiers, for sure. Truck drivers, 80% chance that in the next 20 years, you're gonna have these giant semi-truck trailers on the freeway with no one driving them. Doesn't that sound exciting and scary at the same time? Yes. Uber and Lyft, same thing, right? Those are also starting to get automated. It's different. So when I'm looking back at this, and I look at that date down there on this picture, right? The year I taught them, think about how much has changed in their lives. These kids are now graduated from college. And then I look back at my own family. This is my family here. I have 3 girls, all with the last name Hooker, so pray for them. When they get to middle school, it's just going to be... so that's, this is Ima, Yura, and Vegas Hooker. And the thing... No, I'm not that cruel, y'all. My wife, true story though, my wife actually became a hooker in Vegas because that's where we got married. But I say all that to say these are the years that these girls are actually graduating from high school. So my youngest one there, Caroline is her real name. When she walks out the doors of high school in 2031, think about how much is going to change in the world. That's not too far from now. But just thinking back to my first grade class, it's shifted quite a bit. Now, my oldest daughter was, for lack of a better word, invented in 2008. The deployment was, never mind. And then think about this phone, which was invented in 2007. So if any of you teach elementary kids or have even 11 and 12-year-olds, they don't know a world where this didn't exist. And it harkens back to kind of this Douglas Adams quote, which I love, which talks about technology. And it's a few things, right? Anything in the world that's around when you're born is just going to be natural. It's just part of the way of life. I can talk to Alexa. I can look up things on my phone. I have a smartwatch. Now, anything that's invented between the ages of 15 and 35 is new and exciting, and I'll get a job in it, right? The app economy, the gig economy, all of those things. And then this last quote, which speaks more to my demographic, which is anything invented after the age of 35 is against the natural order of things. It's evil and should go away, right? Now, I'm a pretty high-tech dad, and I'm really excited, but then I watch my girls watching YouTube videos of other people playing Minecraft, and I start to wonder, what is that all about? Or this. Like, I don't know what that is. I still can't, it's like break a board or do something. Anyway. And so thinking about all of that stuff and how it ties into our work here, and I'm excited to be a part of this organization with Future Ready, and so I'm going to highlight just three quick parts of this strand. And this framework, you'll see it a lot throughout the day, and some of you probably already looked at it on the website. But I think it's important. It's a big driver of what we're doing here. And so what I'll be talking to in the IT group is we'll be kind of figuring out how do these gears tie into our world and our role, and then how do we integrate that back to that collaborative leadership component. So I'll hit three of them really quick, including the most exciting one I think on here, and that is data and privacy. Super exciting. Are you ready? I promise I'll make it fun. So, quick question. What do you think about when I say the word hacker? What comes up in your head? Give me some imagery. What's happening? Bad guy, credit cards. What does he look like? And it's probably a he, right? He's always got the hood on, right? Yeah, he's always got the hoodie. And in fact, if you Google search hacker, I mean, sure enough, this is what comes up. You know, it's like, he's got the hoodie and there's all this matrix stuff happening on the screen. The truth is, hackers look totally different than that. This is a hacker. He's a former student of mine. This is when he was in 8th grade. This is Rohit. He came up to me and he said, Mr. Hooker, I can hack the SIS. We use Skyward as our gradebook system. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I can get in there and change all the grades. And I had a couple choices that moment. I was like, do I just shut him down? Or do I say, okay, how about this? I'm going to spin up a test server for you, and I want you to hack it. And then I want you to do a report with all the vulnerabilities of what happened. And we can seal up all those things. I'll reference him in a second at the end, but that had a profound impact on his life. There's a couple things you could do in that case. You can shun them away, or you can empower them and use them for good, right? Now, I asked him what was one of the strategies used to hack Skyward, and he said, well, I went into my teacher's classroom and I saw this. Which, the tech guys are like, yes, those sticky notes. And I'll say it's not just teachers or administrators that do this. Do you guys remember a few years ago when there was this alert in Hawaii that there was a missiles coming or something like that? Do you ever hear about this? This was the video report of that. What do you notice? Look down here. You'll notice that he's still using Internet Explorer. No. Tech joke. Anyway, no, he left his password on the screen and they were able to hack into the system and send out a false signal. I know, kind of crazy. And then I started doing some research on password trends. These are the top used passwords in 2018. Anyone can guess what the first one is? Password's actually the second. The first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then password. But then when you're forced to go to 8 numbers, what do you think it becomes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's right. And then this one, which is interesting, QWERTY, which I thought, oh, that's clever, just right across the top row. And I understand as a teacher why. Your tech department changes it all the time. You kind of feel like this guy, where you're just like, what do you mean I got to change my password again? One more time? I mean, I just changed it 90 days ago. I like the guy that pops up over here. What? Yes. So data and privacy is very interesting. I told you would laugh at data and privacy. It's hard to make it exciting, but there are things out there. And so we'll be talking about that a lot, of course, in our strand as well. The next one I want to talk about is the use of space and time. And this is something when we talk about flexible furniture and ways that we can kind of interact with students and make them more active in the classroom, it's important. One thing that I like to do as an administrator is, and it's still the best PD I've ever gotten in my life, is to dress up as a student and go to school in the schools that you work at. It's powerful. And then spend the entire day doing a high school student schedule. I mean, you're exhausted by the end of the day. This was the schedule I did as a 10th grader that day. I'll go ahead and admit that I failed the chemistry quiz again, like I did when I was 16. It's just a jammed-packed schedule, and there's no real time to think. A lot of ways, you're just transitioning, quick to quick, quick. I know some of you probably have similar schedules to this, right? 50-minute schedules, quick changes. There's not a lot of time to reflect. And the other thing I noticed that was really daunting to me was the fact that they make you sit in these all-in-one torture devices, right? Those desks with that bar. And there's some kids in our schools that were like, we have an offensive lineman, he's 6'6", 330 pounds. He can't sit in that desk. He has to stand in the back of the room. And I started thinking, who has the best chair in the entire school district? Teachers? Principals? Where are my superintendents? No. Actually, board members, if you think about it. In our school district, the board members, and they sit in these plush kind of massage chairs, and they sit in them twice a month for 3 hours, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It actually got me to write a blog about how we should kill these desks. And what's amazing is the students took this research and actually brought it to a board meeting one day, and they didn't just bring the research, they also brought the desks. And then what did they make the board members do? Sit in the desk. It was brilliant. And after 3 hours, the board member's like, all right, maybe we need to change this, Maybe it's not, because they had them like, let's get in groups of 2, go. And the board members had to drag their desks, and the students were in the mobile furniture. And they sat there with a clock, and they timed all the transitions. And it was about 1 minute and 50 seconds between transitions that was lost just from dragging desks around. Extrapolate that over 180 days, you've lost a lot of instructional time just transitioning. They also brought a lot of research about the brain and movement. Now, what is the average amount of time you think an adult could stay seated without some sort of transition? Give me an idea. 15 minutes? Three. Some of you are like, 1 minute, Karl. I was ready to move once you started talking. Someone's back there's like, I can listen to you talk for 3 hours. And apparently I'm from East Texas all of a sudden. It's actually about 18 to 20 minutes for the average adult that can stay seated before you need some sort of transition. Now for kids, it's the average age. Kindergarten teachers, you got this much time. You put the kids on the carpet, 5 minutes later, what are they doing? They're all over the place, right? And it's not that you have to get them to stand up and do a jumping jack, it's just you need to have some sort of transition. So I think it would be kind of ironic if I told you there has to be a transition, but then I don't actually do it. So guess what? We're gonna have a transition. I need a volunteer. This is where they all look down. Thank you, sir. He volunteered for everybody. Come on up. You guys are gonna do this too in just a second. We're gonna play a game. This is a quick one. It's called reverse charades. You ever played this before? Have you played this?
I have not.
Okay, good. Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
So what's your name?
Peter.
Peter, all right. Peter, good job. All right, here we go. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna be with a partner, and I'm going to start acting something out, and you're gonna say, hey, Karl, what are you doing? And I'm gonna tell you something different than what I'm doing. And whatever I say, you have to do. But be nice to your partner because then it's gonna change. Okay, so don't be cruel, like I'm doing backflips. No, don't make them do backflips. All right, so I'll start, we'll act it out, and then you guys will do it. All right, here we go. And you say, hey, Karl, what are you doing?
Hey, Karl, what are you doing?
I'm riding a bike. And then wow, he got on the bike too. Hey, Peter, what are you doing? Give me some.
I'm flying a kite.
He's so nice.
Hey, Karl, what are you doing?
I'm doing a plank. No. Thanks, Peter. All right, let's give him a hand. Good job. All right. So you're going to stand up and do this very thing with somebody, but again, be nice to your partner and make sure you have some room. So do this for about 30 seconds. All right, so everyone stand up. Figure out who's going first. You can do it in a group of 3 if you want. All right, you ready? Stretch out a little bit. You can go ahead and start. What is that? What was that? Nice. Nice. What was that? Okay. All right, stop before you hurt yourself. Stop. Give your partner a high five or a fist bump. You can have a seat. Good job. Give him an awkward sideways hug. Okay. I like sleeping. That was good. By the way, there were some really good dance moves happening over here. We're going to see that at the reception later, I hope. Okay. So that little bit of movement got oxygen to your brain. You guys have been sitting for a little while. I mean, even before I was talking, you've been sitting. So it allows you to kind of wake up your mind, even that 30 seconds. So thinking about that when you're doing professional learning for your staff, right? Don't let them sit for 6 hours straight. Break it up, have chunks. And it doesn't have to be a crazy brain break. It can be something as simple as turn to a neighbor and have a discussion about this. It just changes their thinking, changes kind of their mindset there. And in the classroom, it can look like different things. One of the things I like to do is substitute teach for my daughter's teachers on Teacher Appreciation Week, because I feel like the best gift you can give a teacher is the gift of time, right? And so what I do is I go in, thank you, yes. And they love it. And I love it too, because selfishly, I get to teach my own kids again, and I get to see what is the impact of all these tools and things that we're putting into kids' hands, right? What does that look like? So here I am actually teaching a lesson. This is I think it's Nearpod. These are first graders, and I'm showing them, the kid in the back is like spinning in circles. Little virtual reality, right? We're taking them to a reef. Some of these kids have never traveled outside of this classroom, so for them to actually go somewhere different. And what's amazing to this is the ability, again, there's not crazy furniture and there's just tables, but getting them up for just a minute. And you can see, look at this kid, he's like, what is that? You know, so focused in on that. And looking at just the ability to get them to stand up for just a minute and do something different before they shift to some sort of other learning activity. I look at classrooms like this, and what does this say really about learning? What does that furniture say? Don't move. Where's all the knowledge coming from? Way in the front. And the crazy thing about this, if you look at this classroom, I went in here, this was actually at Texas A&M University a couple of years ago. This isn't an old photo. I was teaching a guest lecture in this class, and I asked the professor, I was like, do you use technology? And he's like, yeah. In fact, if you look, I've got a overhead projector there, and if it doesn't work, I've got another one right over there. It's amazing. So it doesn't allow for a lot of movement and collaboration, which is a bit challenging, right? So looking at research, just at all the different things that can impact learning as an environment. Those of you that are going to be working on this strand today, looking at that space and time, it does have an effect. Color, classroom colors have an effect. Just painting your classroom a different color has a major effect on that. Temperature, air quality, flexibility, all of those things. Think about how that affects the learning, you know, through all the different personalizing factors. And it's different for every kid. You can't just make them all flexible because some kids need to stand or some kids need to sit in a regular desk. So you got to have that variety built in there. Last thing, and then I'll get out of here. And that's this idea of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, the CIA. Yes. Ties into all of us in a lot of ways. This is the core of a lot of what we're doing. And when you look at classrooms of the future, I love these videos. They look so like, oh, everybody's so happy, you know. This is the school of the future, you know, magic windows everywhere. And kids can communicate and connect through virtual worlds at different places and times across the country and across the world. And then my favorite part is that the technology never breaks. It's unbreakable. Yay! That is a magical future. But what's interesting about this picture is what's still happening. Still very teacher-led. I mean, there is some interaction with the students, but it's very teacher-led. So when we're thinking about the tools that we're starting to give our students, how can we change that in this area of curriculum instruction and assessment? And it's not just about the curriculum, it's not just about the textbooks, there's lots of different parts to that. But as a teacher, I used to always, whenever I heard this question, I felt like I have failed as a teacher. Why did I fail if this was the question that I was getting asked? That's all they cared about. And if I'm not talking, oh, this isn't on the test, I'm going to turn it off, right? I love this Seth Godin quote, which is like, we need to be asking kids to solve these interesting problems and be okay if they get them wrong. Not every answer is going to be at the back of that textbook in life, right? And looking at research out of Stanford, this actually shows a drop-off in questioning, curiosity-based questioning after about the age of 3. And it's interesting, any of you have been around a 3-year-old or borrowed one before? I mean, they do ask a lot of why questions. But by middle school, you're averaging 0 to 2 curiosity-based questions a day. And some of it is the research says, well, they can access the information, so maybe they're not asking because they're empowered to look it up themselves, which is okay. But I think you still have to kind of figure out how do you build this level of curiosity into the classroom. That's my daughter when she was 4. She was looking up at a blimp. I went to go take a picture of the blimp, and I said, you know what? Let me look at those eyes right there. That, to me, is what I want to see. I want her to have that same look all the way through high school about everything, except for boys. I don't want her to look at boys that way, but other everything else. And looking at all the textbooks and the curriculum, you can tie into this. By the way, y'all have your brand of science? We have Texas science, right? I'm not quite sure what that is, but you know, it's Texas. You can tie, the curriculum is still kind of, in some ways it's cumbersome, but it's also how you teach it, right? So one last quick example, and then I'll get out of here. And that is the idea that you could actually change and shift the way you're thinking, even at the high school level. So creating courses like Incubator Courses, where this isn't for the straight A students, y'all. It's more about those kids that are the struggling C students that just need to find a different method of learning, giving them a path or an avenue of some other way to learn. And it's really tied into this iterative process. Oops, and my laptop went off. That's interesting. And like that, they just cut me off. I'm done. Is that the cutoff? Wow, awesome. So it's tied into the iterative process. And the one thing I'll share with you just at the end of this anyway was I was going to bring up an image of Rohit. You remember the student I showed you earlier? It's interesting. I of course, kept a really close eye on him after that. And I wanted to see like what was he going to do? What's he going to turn out to become? So he just graduated, actually, Westlake High School this last year. And he started his own company. And it's called Trash Bots. And the idea is that he wants to go into third world countries and provide low-cost STEM and STEAM solutions for those kiddos. He and his 17-year-old brother created a company. He learned Chinese in high school with the ability, so he could talk to China and actually have them help develop some of the things over there. And now he is traveling to Peru and India as a 19-year-old building these things. And I saw him, and I'm actually an advisor now with him. He goes, you know what, Mr. Hooker, you gave me that chance. You could have shut me down, but you gave me that chance. And he goes, because of that, I want you to help me with this, and I want you to be a part of this. And I started thinking, as leaders, we need to be ready for that. We need to make sure that we're creating these risk takers. But I want to add one layer to that. It's not just about risk taking. We need to add empathy to that risk taking, right? Anybody can code, that's great. Everyone can code, everyone can create. But can everyone code and create with empathy? That's the important thing. Thank you guys so much. I want you to have a great day today. Hand it over to Jimmy.